Welcome everyone to the second episode of In a Nutshell, the fortnightly webinar hosted by Natural Gas World, where we look at the global news and trends for the gas industry. My name is Joseph Murphy. I'm joined by my colleague William Powell today, and we also have with us representatives from the Gas Exporting Countries Forum. And the title of our webinar today is Prospects of Natural Gas in the New Energy Outlook. Greening natural gas. So firstly, to start off with a little bit about the GECF, it is a Doha-based international organization with 20 members that serves as a gathering of the world's leading gas exporters. As an energy association, its members in strengthening global energy security and meeting the world's growing energy demand. GECF also provides scientific insight into the gas industry, the state of the gas industry and its trends. Our panelists today are His Excellency Yuri Centurion, the Secretary General of the GECF. Hello.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody.
I also have with us today Dmitry Sokolev, the head of GECF's Energy, Economics and Forecasting Department.
Good afternoon. Hello.
And finally, we have Sid Ahmed Hamdani, an energy, environment and policy analyst at that department. Hi there.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you.
So I thought we'd start off, if we could start off with you, Your Excellency. So on June 5th, we had the World Environment Day that was celebrated globally. This provides us with a good opportunity to discuss the role that natural gas is having in energy transitions today. And to start off with, could you maybe brief us on gas's potential as regards to environmental protection and sustainability? And what is the Forum Secretariat doing in order to reinforce and consolidate the organization's capacities in meeting challenges posed by climate change?
Thanks, Joseph, for giving me the floor. But before I start, first of all, I would like to offer sincere appreciation for our long-term partners, Natural Gas World, for this opportunity to keep up providing data and analytics-based insights as regards to the current situation of the natural gas markets. As you already mentioned, since its inception in early 2000, our organization, which is today is an alliance, is a coalition of 20 member countries jointly controlling 72% of proven natural gas reserves, as well as 46% of its marketed production, I mean natural gas marketed production, and 55% of pipeline and 61% of LNG exports across the globe. So our organization, since its establishment, has been tirelessly accomplishing the goals, we call them strategic objectives, posed by our member countries. The Forum's mission is built on sustainable, efficient and environmentally conscious development and utilization of the natural gas reserves. This is our priority objection, our mission, and as already mentioned, we have been tirelessly accomplishing this goal. Of course, I would like to say that total in general, we have got 5 strategic objectives. All of them are enshrined in our long-term strategy. And specifically in connection with the recent celebration of the World Environment Day, I would like to emphasize now one of the priorities. I would like to cite it as it is stipulated in our long-term strategy. That is our priority objectives is to contribute to meeting future world energy needs, ensuring global sustainable development and responding to environmental concerns, in particular with regard to climate change. So I would like to say that permanently on different levels inside our organization, we try to reaffirm and reconfirm the mentioned objective, and this is one of our values, I can say. And recently, as a sample, it was last year November, in Malabo, the capital of Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea is considered to be one of our key member countries from African continent. We held the fifth summit of our organization on the level of heads of state and government, and as the result of the multifaceted discussion devoted to the most acute issues of the world energy markets and gas markets specifically, our leaders adopted unanimously the Malabo Declaration, which stresses the essential role of natural gas in the attainment of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and particularly I would like to say about goal number 7. That is, we discussed, and unanimously reaffirmed environmentally friendly, affordable, reliable, accessible, and flexible nature of natural gas for ensuring economic development and social progress. I would like to emphasize specifically that never stepping back of this belief that natural gas is a destination point, the Gas Exporting Countries Forum has been consistently engaging with the foremost international environmental platforms to advocate the essential role of this source in achieving a lower carbon energy system. And as you mentioned, what we are doing at that direction, I would like to say that first of all, we try to formalize our standpoint in this field, and we started the process and obtained the status, a very important status for us, that is permanent observer to the United Nations Framework Convention upon Climate Change. So as well as we now participate as a permanent expert organization within the framework of G20, Group 20 Ministerial Meeting on Energy Transitions and Global Environment for Sustainable Growth. So resuming, due to the mentioned activities, we became a part of International Climate Dialogue, a permanent part of International Climate Dialogue. So I would like to say that in order to highlight, to stipulate our standpoints and our insights in this direction, we worked out the whole variety of instruments and specific tools. First of all, I would like to underscore, and I hope that my colleagues will add and make some more clarification upon this score. We are based on the global gas model. That is a unique facility we are possessing for the time being, which has been developed on the basis of huge investments made by all our member countries. And for the time being, that is, from my point of view, an important detail. This global gas model is based on some elements of artificial intelligence, and this is completely digitalized utility, which is used by our experts to forecast the further developments of energy markets in general, and in particular natural gas markets. So due to the mentioned model, we are able to produce one of our flagship publications or deliverables, which is called Global Gas Outlook, with the horizon of forecasting up to 2050. And that horizon of forecasting, for the first time, we published early this year in February 2020 here in Doha, in Qatar. So the mentioned global gas outlook represents an impartial view on gas market evaluation by highlighting the most likely developments in the medium and long term. So, and the colleagues are invited today to participate in our dialogue and our discussions, the ones who are responsible directly for this type of work inside the GECF Secretariat. I would like to name a few features of paramount significance from my point of view in connection with the mentioned landmark milestone publication of GECF. First of all, for the first time, we studied different alternative scenarios. The pragmatic and feasible carbon mitigation pathways that support an accelerated transition towards low carbon energy systems. We assess the effects of strengthened carbon mitigation policies adopted and pursued by different countries and larger technology advancements for some key technologies, specifically the hydrogen-related ones. You mentioned about greening technologies, greening natural gas role. So I would like to stress specifically the utilization of natural gas as a basic resource to produce hydrogen. We call this hydrogen blue one, as it is based in its production on the natural gas resources. So I would like to say that due to that opportunity, feature, credentials of natural gas, we hope that the contribution of natural gas in the primary energy mix can be even up to 29% by 2050. For the time being, I would like just to remind you, the share of natural gas in global energy mix is approximately 23%. In compliance with our calculations, we hope that natural gas will be the only hydrocarbon resource which will increase its share in the global energy mix up to 26%. Due to the utilization of natural gas as a source for the production of hydrogen, blue hydrogen, this share can be more than the limit I've mentioned about. So as well as I would like to mention another tool or instrument which is started widely using by our member countries, that is recently established Gas Research Institute. So it was unanimous decision of our member countries in compliance with the new requirements and new challenges to preserve environment, to preserve nature. And so our member countries decided a few years ago, recently, I can say, to set up a new global gas research institute with a location in Algiers, in Algeria. So all of our member countries submitted for the scientific committee, specially set up to consider and to study new ideas for research works. So our member countries submitted 29 different ideas, different concepts for studying, for researching. And through the mentioned scientific committee, we selected 3 of them as a first batch. I would like to say specifically that one of the projects submitted for research, that is the one connected with flaring gas, how to struggle, how to work, how to deal with flaring gas, and how to preserve the environmental. As well as recently, on the basis of some advancements and achievements made by our member countries, we worked out a special initiative. We triggered a special initiative which is called Environmental Knowledge and Solutions Framework Initiative. So this is a composition of specific and concrete actions which are going to be undertaken by our member countries to achieve the goals of Paris Agreement and the goals highlighting and stipulating in the international documents upon the scope. Speaking about this current situation, because we cannot ignore the coronavirus pandemic, the outbreak of novel coronavirus, of course, impacted drastically all these processes. I would like to say that in spite of that, in spite of the world and industries entered the uncharted waters, we are trying to navigate through the period of uncertainty, understanding the crucial role of natural gas, which is playing under all these unprecedented circumstances in our inevitable pathway towards the lower carbon economy. I would like to stress specifically that our member countries consider all these tools and instruments as useful and inevitable and fruitful for them. to support their businesses and to meet these new uncertain challenges and specifically climate challenges. That was the usual, the general, not usual, the general, the common information about GECF, about GECF activities, and about our priorities connected with the environment and with the protection of nature.
Great, thank you very much for that very expansive introduction to what GECF is doing in terms of cooperation and also the insight into the outlook for gas, and very interesting the topics you discussed about how to make gas cleaner, and you talked about hydrogen, you talked about efforts to reduce flaring, and yeah, very interesting to hear that you see gas as the destination fuel. I think you said you expected it to have a 29% share in the energy mix by 2050.
Exactly.
It's very interesting. There's quite a few points I'd like to come back to, but for now, can I move to Dimitri? So how do you see the link between natural gas and sustainable development?
Yes, Joseph, again, thank you very much for inviting for this panel. And of course, we definitely, as a GECF, we help to member countries to deliver the answer to this key question on different political commitments. Definitely, we see the natural gas as a backbone of low carbon energy system of the future. In Outlook, which His Excellency Secretary General mentioned, we published early this year, this message that natural gas is going to have a characteristic of not a transition, but destination fuel is clearly supported with the numbers. And GECF basically the only one international organization who supports in its study this message. Again, I would like to say that GECF is quite a new agency and a new organization on international energy field. We start looking into the future in 2017 when we start this global gas model exercise. We start a regular publication of our global gas outlook. And what we see, and the main challenge for natural gas to achieve the figures His Excellency mentioned, we see that natural gas will be #1 source of energy in primary energy mix. It's overcome coal, it's overcome oil, and take really position it deserves to be. However, challenges, and this mainly how natural gas will meet global environment expectation and address it. Basically, the request of a modern society, and society is now quite requesting for low carbon development. So in our outlook, we see that definitely natural gas should be the source which effectively meet this expectation and give the answers. Of course, in our activities, we started to work very closely with all international agencies, starting from United Nations. We definitely see that statement which was given by Secretary General of United Nations last year, that we are not on track with Sustainable Development Goals agenda, and we definitely need to use this decade for more actions. And decade of actions is also referred to GECF. And of course, the action should be started from agency itself and from institutions and GECF. We definitely see more effective institution. I should say that I brought our book. So even if you take the cover, you immediately see environmental credentials. Even, of course, we have a special website for Outlook, but again, people who prefer to read the book, you will get a book which is published with environmental credential using a special ink with recycled paper. So this is, we start from the beginning. We participate as a forum in all local Qatar environmental activities, including environmental days. And another important, we see the importance of better use of data for natural gas and how we interpret and deliver the message using this data. Again, GECF is working very hard on openness. We start the process on publishing annual statistical bulletin. Again, we with the data showing the importance of natural gas in the sustainable development. And of course, technology and innovation. Secretary General already mentioned about Gas Research Institute. From our side, we definitely see a lot of improvements. For example, in methane issue, how the data innovations can help to bring natural gas in more environmental and sustainable way to the consumer. To summarize, again, we see that natural gas for the next decades is going to have a central role in energy systems. We definitely see the responsible actions, including by GECF member countries, allow us to see that the coming decades will be without major energy crisis. We definitely see the responsible attitude of all suppliers. And again, the only important challenge, and again, in Secretariat, we do a lot on this development, is to establish a productive dialogue with all consumers, and especially in terms of dialogue with the regulators in that countries. So this is in general our view. Again, we definitely see the natural gas as a backbone of energy transition.
Thank you. Yes, and of course, to truly understand in which direction the energy mix is going, you need a data-driven approach. If I could turn to you now, Sid, could you introduce to our audience the GECF's Environmental Knowledge and Solutions Framework Initiative more in detail?
Yeah, thank you very much, Joseph. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk on the GECF Environmental Knowledge and Solution Framework. As we call it, EKS framework. So it's an initiative that which is launched by the GECF Secretariat as a response to the increasing environmental challenges faced by gas producers and gas exporters. So what is the objective of this initiative? First is to create a supportive framework that allow member countries of the organization to promote and strengthen the sustainable image of natural gas. Second is to share the best practices between member countries on how to deal with environmental issues, and also build capabilities and establish research collaboration between GECF and different actors and different organizations on environmental related topics. So these are the main objectives. What we are considering now, we are considering a set of actions. We have identified 12 actions that allow us to deal with the different environmental challenges. These actions include reinforcement of research activities, of studies, cooperation with different organizations. We have joint studies program. Also, we are establishing a platform of interaction between GECF member countries, experts, improving communication and dialogues, even at high-level dialogue. GECF, as His Excellency mentioned, is part of the UNFCCC, and is leveraging this status as of observer in order to promote messages that support the environmental and sustainable advantages of natural gas. And also we try to organize different events, different workshops on the environmental issues. Just I would like to point out 3 main actions that we are initiating or establishing in the framework of this EKS initiative. First of all, let's start with studies and research activities. So the GECF Secretariat has initiated several studies, elaborated studies and reports on the environmental and the sustainable advantages of natural gas. There is a recent study which has been established on the link between gas and sustainable development. In our view, sustainable development is more than climate change mitigation. It needs to incorporate other sustainability criteria, including energy access, availability, affordability of energy supply, competitiveness, and also even cooperation between different energy stakeholders. So these criteria, I mean, allow to build this framework that highlights the link between energy and sustainability. What we want also to say is that we are basing on our modeling capabilities. His Excellency Secretary General mentioned the GGM, the Global Gas Model, and this modeling capabilities allow us to develop scenario analysis. One of the main scenario analysis that we performed in the Secretariat is the carbon mitigation scenario, for example, which is a policy-oriented scenario, and we want through this scenario to investigate the role of gas in mitigating emissions. We have also hydrogen scenario, which has been developed in order to assess the decarbonizing role of hydrogen in hydrogen, especially blue hydrogen, which is a gas-based hydrogen. And our assessment is that, considering the policy and also technology developments, natural gas can achieve progress in the primary energy mix, and also can support mitigation of emissions. Natural gas in alternative scenario can reach around 29% in the alternative scenario of the GCF. This is our assessment. We have also different program of studies with different organizations on different topics. For example, on the complementarity between renewables and natural gas, which is an important topic. So we see that there is real synergy between gas and renewables, and we want to investigate further these synergies. Also, there are other studies on the potential of coal to gas switching, especially in Asia. Asia Pacific is a focus area of the GCF, and also the role of gas in mitigating emission in the transportation sector also, especially in this context where the gas prices are affordable and are competitive. So there is we see a potential in the transportation sector. So these studies, I mean, one of the outcomes of this study is to provide policy recommendations for the member countries. I mean, we want to translate the results and outcome of these studies into actions from the member countries, and this is our aim. This is the first action we try to perform in the context of this EKS framework. There are also other actions, for example, dialogue with stakeholders and communication, especially at high-level dialogue. What we observe that natural gas there is a lot of misunderstanding of the role of natural gas in meeting sustainability challenges, and through this framework, so there is a lot of actions, communication actions, in order to promote this and try to deal with misunderstandings, try to understand what are the key challenges and what are the key responses that we can, I mean, as GCF, together with different countries, I mean, consuming countries, policymakers, countries, how we can deal with the challenges and bring the right responses. So this is the second action. There is also other actions, for example, methane emissions. So also we propose to deal with methane emissions by improving data, for example, accuracy, by sharing best practices between the member countries in terms of reducing methane emissions. Just I would like to highlight that companies from the member countries have already initiated actions in dealing with methane emissions, and they signed, some companies like, for example, Qatar Petroleum or even Gazprom, they signed a guiding principle to reduce methane emissions, and they are developing practices in order to deal with this issue. So these are the three main actions that we are developing in the context of this EKS framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very interesting. So now we will move the conversation into a more, the webinar into more of a discussion of some of the topics we've looked at. Quite a few times we've mentioned the role that blue hydrogen could potentially play. There are other types of hydrogen, of course, green hydrogen, grey hydrogen. What does? Can you just walk us through what exactly is meant by blue hydrogen, and how it offers certain benefits that other types of hydrogen don't? Who would like to field that one?
Mm-hmm. If you don't mind, I would start to answer these questions. We stress specifically upon this opportunity for the ones who produce natural gas, because from our point of view, natural gas is a natural resource for the production, for producing blue hydrogen. Why this hydrogen is called blue? Because it is produced with the usage of methane, that is the natural gas. And we shouldn't forget that if we produce hydrogen with the usage of methane, there's another, the so-called byproduct or collateral product, which can be used by the industry and by the community. I'm talking about carbon. We maybe got accustomed to criticize carbon. We are talking a lot about low carbon economy, low carbon energy, and so on and so forth. But we shouldn't forget that carbon is a useful and instrumental product which is used widely by different branches of economy and by community itself. So this is byproduct, can be efficiently captured and stored, and after that used as a very useful deliverable industrial product. So, resuming, there are two pluses, so two advantages producing hydrogen with the usage of methane. That is high pure hydrogen with a high purity, and on the second step, on the second phase, that is the obtaining of some amounts of carbon which can be used by the industry itself and by the community. On the other hand, I would like to say that natural gas, methane, is one of the most abundant, ample natural resources, widely met in different corners of the world, everywhere, I can say. And this is the very rich basis for the production of hydrogen. And one more advantage I would like to say about that is the advanced technologies already used to produce hydrogen on the basis of natural gas. I'm talking about the steam reforming that is used widely, and this technology is I can say worked out and used for some period of time, and can be considered as a adopted technology. All the mentioned advantages, the credentials of natural gas, the purity of the final product hydrogen, the existence of the byproduct that is carbon, as well as the existing technology, the mix of these advantages, from my point of view, makes this pathway as one of the most promising when we speak about blue hydrogen.
May I ask a question regarding the your visions for gas growth? You say it could go about 6 percentage points from 23 of the total energy mix to 29. I'm wondering if that's a global figure, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of talk in Europe about demand uncertainty as we move towards electrons and away from molecules, or we seek to find ways of replacing methane with electrons, whereas those concerns are less important in Asia, particularly in China and India, where price is always the key thing for them. I was wondering how you saw the very low price of gas now as an obstacle or a promotion of gas as a way of allowing people to do expensive things to it, such as turn it into blue hydrogen to subsidize the cost of CCS, and whether you have discussions with Europe and other global, other regional authorities on a proper high carbon price that makes all these other things affordable, particularly in industrialization of, with hydrogen, steel, and so on. Thank you.
Frankly speaking, I would like to say that that is a question. On the other hand, that is a statement of yours. And of course, speaking about price and existing and current level of prices, this is another advantage of this hydrocarbon. We are talking about natural gas. Due to that, this resource and this source of energy becomes more affordable and more accessible for the people and for the communities. I would like to remind you, I mentioned about that United Nations goals, and so I would like to say again about goal number 7, that is to ensure the access to the affordable sources of energy for everywhere, and modern sources of energy for everywhere. On the other hand, I would like to say that the current level of prices for natural gas is a matter of some special concern for all gas producers, because prices don't exist separately from the development concerns of industries and natural gas industry itself. The ones who produces natural gas, who exports natural gas, the ones they need to have the appropriate revenues, cash flow, in order to ensure the further investments and into the development, exploration, exploitation, and further development of the production of natural gas. All these subjects are interconnected with each other. Fortunately, I would like to say that the majority of natural gas supply contracts are based on the oil indexation and oil products indexation. On the other hand, we witnessed recently that the prices for oil also went down, unfortunately, and gas producers will feel and will confront these problems just in a few months, because there's the time difference between these consequences, oil prices and natural gas prices. So our member countries, our community reconfirms in our Malabo Declaration that natural gas producers are keenly interested in the so-called fair prices for natural gas, enabling them to ensure the relevant amount of investments and appropriate amount of capital needed for the smooth development of gas industries. And I would like to underscore that specifically for the sustainable and resilient supply of natural gas for our valuable consumers, customers. So all these procedures are very interconnected. That's why recently I witnessed the talks, the conversation started by stakeholders, or among the ones who are interested in energy issues, about new role of gas exporting countries forum. That is the role of regulation of prices, the role of being more regulator than it is for the time being on energy markets. Of course, our organization has been established on the basis of coordination of energy policies amongst our member countries with the principle of observing the sovereign rights of our member countries upon their natural gas resources, without any interference, without any meddling into their sovereign rights to utilize their own natural gas resources. But new times, new challenges we are meeting right now, we are required to meet right now, pose new questions, new issues in front of us. We've got regular meetings of our ruling bodies. One of our ruling bodies is called ministerial meeting. On annual basis, we've got ministerial meetings, and one of the subjects which is discussed by our ministers, that is the ones connected to the sustainability of natural gas markets. This year, in November, there's a regular ministerial meeting which is going to be held in Algeria. I'm pretty sure there's no doubt our ministers will discuss the matters we are discussing right now. And
yeah,
of course, you're welcome, William.
No, sorry to butt in, Your Excellency, but I think this is a very interesting time, because when the GECF was set up, there were people saying, oh, it'll be like a gas OPEC. But of course, other people pointed out, no, it can't be a gas OPEC, because you have long-term contracts, you have minimal annual deliveries, you have odd indexation. There's no way you can simply arbitrarily not produce LNG. However, we've now reached a point where people want spot LNG, not long-term LNG. And this sort of puts the ball back, if you like, into the hands of producers like yourselves. If you have the flexibility upstream, you're able to more closely tailor the supply to the demand. And the second point I'd like to make is, very quickly, countries like China have made a very successful business from playing off all the different options to them. They have pipeline gas from Central Asia, from Myanmar, they have LNG, and they are very, very canny negotiators. Maybe if the GECF were to act a bit more coherently, there would be a different situation. How do you say about that?
William, you are completely right. On the other hand, I would like to say that from the very beginning, when we started called or named as gas OPEC, we tried I can say, to say our standpoints upon the score, and we confirmed from the very beginning that GECF is not an OPEC, is not like OPEC, because we didn't regulate, and we are not regulating gas markets and energy markets at all. One of our priorities that is to equip our member countries with precise and definite I can say understanding and information about the current status and further developments of energy markets. On the other hand, you mentioned about LNG, you mentioned about some new requirements and some new challenges posed by the current situation. I would like to say, Mr. Sokolov, a friend of mine, he mentioned when he made his statement about the importance of permanent and uninterrupted dialogue between producers and consumers. So this is one of our core values. We are strong supporters of permanent dialogue between producers and consumers. As we are completely, I can say, determined that the market that is the product of a compromise between producers and consumers. Producers cannot exist without consumers. Consumers cannot exist without producers. And through dialogue, we can obtain the proper situation on energy markets, on natural gas markets, just taking into account concerns of both sides, will able to build, to construct the proper market.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I had another point. So you mentioned the indexation between gas supply contracts and oil, and we've seen more and more gas get sold over the years on a spot basis and not based on the oil price. So you've seen that relationship between the gas price and the oil price slowly becoming weaker. And maybe you'd like to comment on this. Maybe Sid or Dimitri, you would also like to comment on this. How do you see that relationship moving forward? Do you see it weak? Presumably, you see it weakening further. I mean, what's your comments on that?
So speaking about this specific item, I would like to say that after the meetings between our leaders, and specifically after summits and after the 5th summit, all our community reaffirmed definitely that we are supporters of the oil indexation and oil products indexation, as well as long-term contracts. Why we reaffirmed this principle and why we call it as one of our core values? Because due to this principle in pricing mechanism, our producers are they are sure that they will have the enough amount of further investments, enough cash flow for the development of their producing capacity and their industries. In spite of that, of course, we are witnessing that, as you mentioned, that is the weakening of relationship between oil indexation and spot prices, and this is one of our concerns. Being confident that oil indexation and long-term contracts, that is the best solution for both parties of the market. Nevertheless, our leading companies, our majors, and on governmental bodies, our ministries started as a pilot, as a maiden flight, some new technologies. As a sample, Gazprom has been mentioned today. So Gazprom started some supplying of natural gas through the electronic bursts in Europe. It's a new step, it's a new action undertaken by Gazprom management in this field. As well as a few, the so-called independent producers from our member countries, they started studying these pricing mechanisms, and we've got the same task in front of us to study pricing mechanism, to study price index, and so this is one of our core commitments in front of our member countries, to study comprehensively this situation and to make an advice, to make a few pieces of advice, to recommend our member countries what is the most reasonable market behavior, market conduction under these unprecedented circumstances. From my point of view, I'm witnessing now some historic milestones and historic changes on the markets. The huge amount of a wave of LNG. Practically, LNG becomes, from my point of view, a commodity market product, as well as new type of contracts. Some changes in contracting and some changes in pricing. So we see some, I can say, fundamental changes on the market, and mission of the GECF to study these fundamental changes and to work out some pragmatic and practical recommendations for our member countries. I can say that for the time being, we are in the middle, in the depth of these studies. We haven't finalized them yet. But I can say that this is our current agenda. I can't say that we have got the finalized recommendation upon this score. Speaking about the further weakening of relationship between in oil indexation and spot prices, of course, we can't exclude this further weakening of relationship. On the other hand, we are still strong supporters of the previous principles. I don't like to say or to call them old school principles, but the principles I mentioned about, it's too early to bury them from my point of view. It's too early. I think that is due to the mentioned principles and relationships, our producers, they were guaranteed for further smooth and sustainable development of their branch of industry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Yes.
So, before I bring this to a close, would anyone else like to comment on some of the issues brought up today?
Yes, if you allow, just add additional. Secretary General mentioned that we look into this price issue quite deeply, and I think again we are the only agency now who provide quite a detailed analysis with the forecast on all hubs pricing. It's already on our outlook. We look into the developments on all regional, and definitely we are starting to discuss possibility on creation the global market for natural gas. Still, it's have some regional qualification. Also, it is very important that this year for global gas outlook, we bring the discussion regarding the carbon economy. Because definitely we see that these days more and more countries, and especially in G20 group, they start to see carbon not as an enemy, but as a quite a valuable commodity. And this again brings a very strong perspective for natural gas. We, as a part of working group of G20 for energy sustainability, provide quite a strong analytic and strong support for the initiative, which was discussed under the G20 presidency of Saudi Arabia regarding circular carbon economy platform. And for natural gas, this platform can bring additional impulse. Today we mentioned that in previous outlook we see that almost 30% of global energy needs will be met by natural gas. With if such kind of initiative going to be supported by G20 club, and it definitely bring us additional impulse for development natural gas industry. At the same time, as usual, our publication is going to be open for discussion, and we definitely look forward for peer review. Maybe your journal can join us on this process. We definitely enjoy receiving our regular publication. Again, I see some room for discussion because, for example, in your Joseph article, there is, for example, when you talk about Russian energy perspective, you have a quite a wide gap of forecast, 85 million ton or 130 million ton. For us as a forecaster, for modeler, so it means quite a challenging process to build a scenario about this target. So again, we need to go to countries, we need to talk to analysts, we need to establish this platform. Again, the wider this platform is going to be, the more beneficial for GECF, but for the whole natural gas industry as well. So again, in our process, we try to establish this communication, exchange of views, and personally, I much appreciate your initiative. And it was a pleasure to talk to you today.
Likewise.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have all of you. So this has been another episode of In a Nutshell, hosted by Natural Gas World. And once again, I'd like to thank all of our panelists and also, of course, our viewers and listeners. We look forward to having you again. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.